we can get out of bed and go on with our day and be in a bad mood and create a bad mood, not only for ourselves, but for everybody that we're around.
Yeah.
Or we can stay in bed and make sure that before we put our feet on the ground that we are loving ourselves and really practicing, practicing being our best friend.
2, 1, 0.
Hello, Michelle, and welcome. Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. I am so grateful and joyful and happy that you're here today.
Thank you. And this is such a pleasure too, because I was sharing with you as we were talking, I fell in love with your family. And when I met your husband, Stephen, and he had so many wonderful things to tell me about you. And that just led me, I couldn't wait till we had our podcast together. So I'm really looking forward to this time together.
Yeah, me too. I find you to be a very extraordinary woman, and everybody's going to find out how amazing you are in just a second. But before we begin, can you share a little bit about your passion and a little bit about where you are today with it?
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm 51 years old, and I don't think I really started living until I had my diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer. And a little bit of backdrop is to how I went in to getting this diagnosis is I had complained for almost a year about my back hurting and my neck hurting, and I kept going into the doctors. I went to the my family practitioner, and he said, Michelle, you have a pinched nerve. That's all you have. And I said, really? That's it? It feels like so much more, and I'm tired, and my left side hurts. And so he sent me home, and I came back again and went to a chiropractor, came back again. And this time I said, you know what, it's something more. And I felt a lump on my left breast, went in to get a diagnosis. And when I went in, the night before I had gone in, my husband and I were sitting on the lake and we were praying, and my daughter had just come home and she was in the hospital, and I'll let her tell her story. But we were praying that we were so grateful that we had each other, that all of us were together. And so he says to me, and he had been reading Jordan Peterson's book at the time, which was Treat Yourself Like Somebody You're Responsible For, was chapter 2. And I thought, okay, that was such a kind of a unique comment for my husband to make to me. But he said to me, he goes, Michelle, you need to treat yourself like somebody you're responsible for taking care of, and be this mama bear that you have been, for our daughter and for our son. And so I went in, I had the diagnosis, I got the biopsy. And if you can imagine, my family, we all went, my mom and my dad and my husband were there, and the doctor came out and said, you're diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
My goodness.
And at that time, I didn't know how much it had spread, but I knew that it was serious because of how long I had been feeling this way. And I thought about what my husband had said, and that was, treat yourself like somebody you're responsible for, and really loving yourself, through this. And that's how my journey started, going down this path. And when I went in, I went and saw several doctors. One of the doctors that I went into, my husband and I, again, were sitting there, and I was asking them if I could record all these doctor's appointments, because I wanted to find my truth, and what was possible, what was it that I should be taking. And the doctor came back and said, you have 90 days. If you do not do what is prescribed, and what they wanted me to do was the highest form of chemo and radiation. And for really, in my gut, that was just not the option for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had had some prior challenges, and just felt really strongly that doing chemo was not the path for me. And as since now it's been, almost 3 years. It'll be April 15th, 2019 is when I was diagnosed. And I'm coming up on 3 years of this. And I attribute staying on the planet and being so healthy is because I followed my intuition and I set up a team of doctors that I really, similar to this, is we would do a Zoom call and I would pull them all together and be able to talk to them about my health and what was the next step for me. And so that was the path that I started, and where I'm at right now. I love to be able to share with you, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. is with your questions.
Yeah. Wow. So where do you think you found that courage to say no to chemotherapy and to be true to yourself? Because a lot of time we give our power to everybody that has a title or a uniform. And just because of that, they know better than us, and we do not listen deeply to our own intuition. And especially in time like that, when you get this very, very difficult, very challenging news, it's like it's weakening. And how did you, in this place of coping with the news, how were you able to stay true to yourself?
Yeah, what I want to respond to you is I don't know. I don't think any of us have the answers. I will say, I did a lot of praying, and what came up for me was believing you. I asked the doctors point blank. I mean, again, being a mom, I asked the doctors point blank, if this was your child, if this was your daughter sitting in front of you, what would you do? And I've always been very intuitive and looking directly at the doctors and looking right on when I would ask that question. And a lot of them couldn't look me in the face. They couldn't look me dead on. They looked away. And when I told them that I had put together this team of doctors from all over the world, I thought, what, Lance Armstrong, he was diagnosed with cancer and he built up this team of doctors. So I thought, what, I could do that. And so I got doctors from all over, from Germany, from Israel, from everywhere. And what I found was that they were doing things out of the norm and things that were working for them. I did oxygen therapy. I did oxygen baths. I did, I talked about going on a vision quest where I was 3.5 days with no food, no water. And on the third day, like crazy stuff.
Okay, let's talk about the crazy stuff, because that's really interesting to me. So, hyperbaric chamber. Yeah. And then oxygen masks, because obviously when you give oxygens to the cell, because I know that when people are deprived of oxygens, their cells can become more cancerous. So it makes sense that oxygen can heal it or reverse it.
Cancer can't live in a oxygenated body, a body that is filled. So if you were to see, so right now what I've set up at my home, because of COVID and because of having to create a healing home out of my house, I couldn't travel all over the world. And so what I did was I started bringing in these healing modalities into my home that were cost effective. I have just an amazing set of girlfriends and family friends that just really loved on me and put their arms around me. But I've got an oxygen tank here that I use as well, that I can show you. It's like, and then also my girlfriend, she got a hyperbaric oxygen tank at her home.
Wow.
So that she can use. So I go over and use that a couple times a week as well. Kathy, who is my little angel. And I think what I really want to start with is we have all these different healing modalities that are available to us. But one of the things that is the greatest healing modality that we have on the planet is love. When we can show up in love for one another, and we can vibrate at a level of frequency where we are healing. I mean, I feel like that's how my sales, have really healed, is by first, loving on myself and loving on my family, and allowing my family to love on me. I was this type A CEO who, was very, very independent, even with my husband. I mean, he had said to me, he goes, "You really had a hard time just being vulnerable and being, like when something was bugging you, it was this mindset of, oh, I can overcome this, I'll be fine." And so when I was diagnosed, it was really going inward and recognizing that it truly is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
That if we're not loving on ourselves, that we have no love to give to others.
Mm-hmm.
And this low level vibration that I think the world right now is operating at is hurting us. I think it's taking away from our strength, and it's taking away and it's depleting us from our energy, and creating dis-ease in all of us.
Yeah, especially when one's stuff, him or her emotions, it is eventually gonna be expressed in the body. And you've done it for years, and now it's being expressed, and you're taking the path of love, which is the right path, I believe.
It's so amazing, Orion. Like my husband and I, again, 25 years of marriage, it's never been so good. I mean, it's, and it's funny because, we make a joke as just, oh, this could be the last time, that we get to kiss each other or love on each other. This could be the last time, and so now it's like this running joke, because again, it's going into the third year. This could be the last time. Well, this could be the last time. And treating our relationships like that. I look at with my son and my daughter. I mean, they stayed home. When they could have moved away, when mom was diagnosed, they stayed home, and we mended, our relationship with each other. And I was always in my phone, and I was always preoccupied, and I always was gone. And I had some shame over that too. And, and what I learned, and this is probably the biggest thing that I learned that I want to tell moms out there, is that there is no shame in the way that we've shown up for our families. That I know in my heart of hearts that I have shown up in total love, for my family. And I haven't made always the best decision or had the best answer, but I have shown up with love. And that to me is the best that I can do for my family. And I look at too is loving on myself is the best that I can do for my family, and healing myself. And I always share that. People ask me all the time, Michelle, should I do chemo? Should I do radiation? Should I do? And my comment back to them is, first and foremost, is how are you loving yourself? What are you doing to love on yourself?
I love the idea of self-love. This is what I am working with when I work with clients. It's all about self-love. You start with self-love for healing, self-love for your relationship, self-love for your family. Self-love is the key for everything, I believe. And we criticize ourselves so much. We are sometimes so unkind to ourselves, and we hold guilt and shame and blame, and we have this little voice in our head that says you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that, you don't belong, whatever it's saying. It is all a part of, and when we give it strength, we are moving away from self-love. We are moving away from self-care. and we are moving away from connection with our surrounding and connection with God, our creator. Um, and so that feels very isolating. And in a place of so much pain and isolation, disease can manifest. So tell me, what is the difference between the alpha type, super successful, famous, powerful woman that you still are, but the version of yourself that was the difference between the last version of who you were to who you are today? Who were you before, and what did you discover about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, what a wonderful question too. And I just want to go back to what you had said earlier before, because if we can show up in love over fear, I mean, it's every day is a great day. And that's how I've been taking it, is just every single day, you know, is this day of living without fear. And once you figure out how to live without fear, you know, so I don't have any fear of death. I don't have any fear of, all I do is create the most amazing relationship with my experiences, you know, with the people that I love. And I'll share with you last week, what I've been doing every single Wednesday is spending time with my mom and my dad. And, you know, and here I'm the oldest, so I'm very fortunate because I have both my parents alive. They've been married for 55 years and gone through some of, you know, everything imaginable, you know, that they've gone through. I mean, when I was a kid, I had my brother and sister that I took care of. And then at one time we had 5 foster kids. And so I
Wow.
was, you know, a little mini mom, you know, and would go around and, you know, take care of everybody. I had my first company when I was 11 years old. It was called Mary Poppins Babysitting. I was this, you know, little machine where I was constantly doing things, and I got my validation from the accolades that I got. And, you know, Michelle, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. And so for me, that was always how I showed up, and it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of stress. And so I think the new version of me is something that I like a lot more. I mean, I've fallen in love with myself. I am my best friend to myself. You know, when I've set up boundaries for myself where I don't allow individuals' fear to come into my personal playground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't allow bullies on my playground, including myself. You know,
Nice.
at one time I was a bully, you know, for myself.
Wow.
And it was that mindset, Orion, of always having to do that next thing and always having to be better. And it was never enough. It was never enough. And I finally got to the point where the veil between this life and the next life is very, very, very thin. And what I mean by that is when you are living in a space of love, you're able to show up in a manner of just exuding this attitude of gratitude, this feeling of alleviating yourself from loneliness and despair. And I think that what we had talked about earlier with these hyperbaric chamber or the oxygen therapy or the oxygen baths, I mean, all of those I think are wonderful and put you into this state of relaxation and oxygenating the body so that it can communicate to the body, you know, that we're okay, that everything is going to be okay. And that's what I looked at is the difference between the old Michelle and this new mindset is that I've communicated to my cells that there's a new queen. That's here. And it's going to be okay. And she's, you know, she's all about love and she's all about peace.
Oh, goodness. That's beautiful.
And bringing that to the body. And I think that we would all could realize that that we don't have to show up in this mindset of anger and resentment, but we can look at people for where they're at in their space. And I think the number one thing that I could share with everyone is to have compassion, not only for yourself, but for others, and what they're going through. There was a period of time where I spent 8 months in bed. And it was just literally back in February, where I wasn't able to sit up, and my family had to feed me. And I'm getting choked up right now because I had to surrender. I had to allow my family to take care of me. And that was humbling. It was very humbling. And I didn't know if I was going to make it out. And, and it allowed me to give myself the joy of being cared for. And it allowed my family, the time and the joy to care for me. And I didn't even realize that. I didn't even understand the magnitude of the healing that happens when we surrender, and allow God, to hold on to us. And when
I'm getting goosebumps, gosh.
I mean, it was when I was going through that and just, crying. I mean, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and my husband, I would be screaming bloody murder because it has gone to bone cancer, and it's in my bones. And remind me to tell you too of my most recent doctor's appointment. I'd love to share with you about that. Yeah. But I woke up and just screaming, and my husband, not once did he get frustrated with me or get angry with me or lose his cool at all. I mean, we're talking 8 months of waking up because it was so painful. And he would, get up, get medication, console me, when I was throwing up, hold my hair up over the toilet. I mean, it was just, and never before have I allowed someone to just care for me. And that in itself is, it's really, when you talk about, till death do us part, and initially I felt like, I was the one that, I'm the one that got hit with the cancer, stick. I got hit with it, and he, he's healthy. And it wasn't until I watched him model, how a husband, how a spouse could love on their spouse, that I just surrendered and was like, okay, babe, take care of me. And it was powerful, powerful.
It is so humbling, because you went from somebody who's the caretaker since she's a very young child, took care of everyone all the time. You're the oldest sister. You have foster brothers and sisters, and then you become this entrepreneur who takes care of, you're a leader. You take care of all these women. You create circles. You touch lives, and it was all for everybody else. I'm there for everybody else. I'm there for everybody else. Even in your own marriage, you're like, I'm going to take care of everything. And no, I have emotions, but I'm good. I'm good. So sometimes we have to, it's like we are brought to our knees in order to have a breakthrough. I used to hate the word surrender. I thought it was very weak, and I was not a weak person. I'm a strong, tough woman. And I had a time in my life where I was I was in an abusive relationship, ended up in a hospital, couldn't date, because I was always so not trusting of anyone. And I went to a Tony Robbins event, Date with Destiny, and their
I
relationship,
love Tony Robbins.
yeah,
Huge fan.
is wonderful. And on the relationship day, I learned about masculine, feminine energy, and that night I sat by a waterfall, and I was in a place of surrender. I started. It was like 1 a.m. You know, the days are really long with Tony Robbins, and I sat by the waterfall, and it was just like I was writing my relationship vision, and then I started laughing and crying and laughing and crying like a mad woman, and I was just in surrender. I was like, okay, God, I was trying. I tried so hard. I can't do it on my own. Please help. And what was it? 48 hours later, exactly at the same time, I met my husband, my today husband. Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's a nice story, but I wanna say that I really get you about the surrender. Um, your level of surrender was different than mine, or there is no
It's all
comparison.
relative, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's all relative, of course. But just to come to a point where Wayne Dyer is calling it letting go and letting God.
Yes.
Easy to say, super hard to do. It's like it's ego crushing to think that you can control everything and there is something else out there that you can rely on. So it's the element of surrendering. It's the element of learning to love yourself, which I had to go on a journey of doing that after that relationship because I hated myself. I used to look in the mirror and I was trying to do the Louise Hay, I love you, and my reflection was just crying. Like I couldn't say I love you to myself. There was so much self-loathing and self-hate there. And I had to go on a journey of loving myself. And I see you and I see how you are, regardless of what you're going through, and the phenomenal last 3 years and the blessings that came out of it. And I know that it happened for a reason and that you're going to stay on the planet for many years, and you're going to take however inspiration. And I know you created a lot of breakthroughs for women and gathered a lot of amazing speakers and created an incredible community, and you help women so much, women, men, a lot of people. And I think this is like an upgrade for you to help globally on a different level because of what you're going through right now and because of how you are showing up right now. Because as I see you now, regardless of what's going on, I see this beautiful, incredible woman who is glowing and is so genuine and pure, and you wear your heart on your sleeve. I don't think you did in the past. And now you have the courage to just show up and just, this is my pain, this is my tear, this is my love, this is who I am. And this is, for me, it's very touching and very inspiring.
Oh. Well, and I love that you shared that, because it just goes back to my initial comment that you and I had, was like, we're going to be good friends,
Amen.
because it is all when you go through that. But I think it's this journey back to you. It's this
Hmm.
journey back to what you had talked about too. I mean, let go, let God, and recognizing that the veil between this life and the next life is so thin. And then I think that when we realize that we're not alone, we're never alone, and that we truly are being held. And I never felt that way before. There was always this feeling of that next step, and I couldn't do it all by myself, and waiting for that other shoe to drop. Whereas now, I, I like I said, I don't have any fear at all, and I think that when I meet other divine warrior goddesses like yourself. I mean, we just look at each other and we know, it's like we know what we've been through, and we know that we're embarking on this magnificent life that we are creating. And I love that you have that contrast between that example between, an abusive relationship and a relationship that's filled with just so much love. Because I think that's why, my husband and I talk about never trading this experience for anything, because had it not been for this time, now we're like, we come back from doctor's appointments and, we're like high-fiving in the hall, coming home and just really celebrating each other for recognizing, that we've got this, we've got this, and others can have this as well. It doesn't need to be, this painful, dreaded, experience, something that all of us are going to experience. I talk about how I was diagnosed on tax day, death and taxes, we're all going to experience. But why not experience it where you are, loving life and it's developing you, and you are, you're really being at one with yourself and making sure that you are, that you're recognizing that once you go through this period of feeling like you're surrendering, it opens up, the universe is working with you. It's not working against you. And I always felt that way before, is the universe was working against me. And I don't feel that way, anymore. I feel like when I go to a quiet place and I meditate for, several hours a day. I think that that's the best thing that we can do for ourselves. Is I joke around before I get up out of bed is, check yourself before you wreck yourself, because we can get out of bed and go on with our day and be in a bad mood and create a bad mood, not only for ourselves, but for everybody that we're around.
Yeah.
Or we can stay in bed and make sure that before we put our feet on the ground, that we are loving ourselves and really practicing being our best friend. I tell people that I'm doing a wellness wedding for myself. My sister, who loves me, she loves me so much. When we went to the surgeon, that's when I found out that where the cancer had spread to. And so the surgeon had said to my husband and my sister, who flew in to go to this doctor's appointment with me, and she said, the surgeon's going and saying, all the places that the cancer had spread to. And when I get nervous, I tend to crack jokes. And so the surgeon's saying, it's in your L1, it's on, your left, rib, it's over here, it's your left breast. She's naming off all the areas, but she did not say an organ. And so my response was, so you think I got a chance? You didn't say an organ. And, it's like Dumb and Dumber. And my sister completely loses it. I mean, she is just like, this is no time to be cracking jokes, Michelle, at all. I can't believe you're cracking jokes. And my comment was, this is the best time to be cracking jokes.
Yeah.
And this is the best time to be loving yourself. I mean, you hear stories about how people go home and they watch, 10 movies that are all joyful, comedies, and they heal, and I think a lot of what we say to ourselves and what we communicate to our bodies has a tremendous effect on us. Our mind, body, soul, spirit.
Do you follow Joe Dispenza?
Okay, so all right, so here, all right, you're gonna love me even more than we're gonna be such close friends. So let me share with you my Joe Dispenza experience. So I went to 2 of his workshops and his masterminds and his advanced workshop. And the last one that I went to, I did not have a place to stay. My business partner, who also was attending, and bless his soul, he passed away 3 months after we had attended that event. And he was friends with Joe Dispenza, and unexpectedly passed away of a heart attack. And so Kozo, we were there, and we were there for my healing. And that's what just goes to show. It's like, here I was told 90 days that I had to live. We don't know, none of us know.
No, we don't.
None of us know. And so I get this phone call, and they have a ticket for me, but it's completely sold out. They have no place, for me to stay in Mexico. But I told my husband as he dropped me off at the airport, I said, I'm going to be in a suite. Like, mark my words, I'm going to be in a suite tonight. And because I was going with the mindset of love. And when you lead with love in your heart and you're just extending that out, it's, things happen, things show up. So I end up, my husband gives me a kiss goodbye. It's the 1st of December, and I head off to Mexico. And as I'm leaving, the wheel on my suitcase goes off. And I was like, okay, this is a good sign, because it wasn't the bottom wheel, it was the top wheel. So it still rolled. So I get to Mexico, and I'm in baggage claim, and I meet these beautiful four women, and I tell them my story, that I have no place to stay. And so they were great, because they were going off to Joe Dispenza's event. And so they said, you can stay with us. And so we end up, I get to the event, and I go to check in. And when I go to check in, they look at me and they said, you're not Michael. We thought you were Michael, not Michelle. And I said, no, I'm Michelle Patterson, and I'm here for the event. And they said, are you okay? You're going to be with an all men's group. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, it's 62 men and 1 female. And so right when I went in, this 62, and I said, but, I'd be happy. I said, I believe, things happen for a reason, and let me tell you about my story. And so they brought me in, and it was amazing. It was, and I recorded the whole experience, because it was just breathtaking. They referred to me as their queen, as their divine warrior goddess.
Nice.
And I ended up doing the ropes course. I mean, everything was with this group. So at night, I would go back to my room and be with my 4, female roommates. And then they would drop me off in the morning. And, for the next 7 days, I experienced like no other experience meditating with 62 men. And so what was so surreal was that I would wake up, and before I would see, they were just all hugging these men and holding each other, and really just at a place where all they wanted was to provide for their families, and were at a loss. I mean, really at a loss. They were bringing their spouses over that were in other groups, because the way they set it up, they said that it was 1 in like a trillion odds that we would even be set up in a group of 1 female and 62 men. And they decided just to leave it and let it take its course. And I had said to them, I'm not leaving here until, I leave my tumor behind. And I'm not going. And it was, like I said, it was the most surreal experience that they were bringing. And I still talk to this group. I refer to them as as my band of brothers. And they, like I said, they would bring over their wives, who I'm still close with, and they were going through cancer. They had no hair. This was like the last, resort of them going to Dr. Joe Dispenza's, event. And Yeah, so it was life changing, that experience, and it just let me know that we're not alone, and that you know the thing that I got from that experience was love life, and life will love you back. I think that that's such a powerful statement to live by, is just to truly love life. That if we surround ourselves with individuals, including ourselves, that are negative and just bring us down, and don't really celebrate the good things that we have, I think that's when we're really at a loss, and we start having dis-ease, in our life.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to um, connect people with Joe Dispenza. I thought the work that he did was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
It
I'm
was
really
absolutely.
excited because we're going to his workshop in Marco
Oh,
Island.
you are.
Yeah, it's the first time. I'm like super excited to see what's going on there, and see the miracles because he had so many people healed there spontaneously. People like blind people started to see, um, people that cured their cancer. So I guess just being around people that heal around you um, is already giving you the certainty, a certainty beyond logic that you can cope with this. Now
Yes.
you got another. So you went through healing, and then you got another diagnosis recently. Do you want to share
Well,
about it?
yeah, I would love to share. And so I've had 10 PET scans. So something that I've done is I've truly done integrative medicine, where I've not only done, things from Germany and all over and this integrated, but I've also followed Western medicine, and only for the testing though. So every time I go in there, like the pain specialist, his comment back was to my family, we don't see individuals like you, Michelle. I
Mhm.
mean, ever in my 25 years of practicing medicine, I have yet to meet someone like you that has so much positive energy, back into just willing myself into this, and also looking for the Joe Dispenzas of the world, and and healing our hearts, starting with our hearts. I did go to a doctor that was standing in for my oncologist that was out of town, and what I was asking her was, um, will I, when will I go into remission? And so she was looking at my PET scan that showed all my markers that were really positive, everything was down. But what she did was she responded based on what she knew. And that was her comment back to me was, you have a terminal illness. You'll never, experience full remission.
Mm.
And I looked at her, she said it to me twice. And this was just a week ago.
Wow.
And I looked at her, and it was a very short meeting, because I thought, you know what, my oncologist, who I normally go to, is so positive, and really respects my wishes, and respects my view of owning my wellness.
Yes.
But I looked at her and I just said, how do you explain, I was given 90 days, and it's now almost 3 years later, and I've had zero treatments. I've had no chemo, no radiation. And she says, I can't explain that. And I can't explain that the cancer is not growing. I can't explain. And so for me, I came home, and it did upset me. I will be honest, when you do hear an authority figure and somebody that does say that to you, it does take you back a couple
Yeah,
steps.
of course.
It really did. I mean, I went to bed the rest of the day. The appointment was at 2, and by the time I got home, I cried. And then the next day, the same thing. And my husband and my friends, and the other doctors that are part of my team were just, Michelle, that's her ideology. That's what she has learned. And, and that's that's where you have to go on what to be your truth. And
Yeah,
I
I'm sure.
did
I'm sure she
experience.
had good intentions, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And people
That.
that are not aware of, you know, people that don't listen to podcasts like this or are exposed to more knowledge. I mean, they will go and they will listen to this doctor, and they will probably expire very, very soon. Because when I was a teenager, my mom gave me the book, "The Power of Your Subconscious Mind" by Joseph Murphy, and I loved that book. And there was a story about this truck driver, and the truck was, I don't know, a cooling truck. It was really cold inside the truck itself, and he locked himself, and he couldn't get out, and he froze to death. And the next morning they found him, and he had all the markers of dying from freezing, but the truck wasn't on. It wasn't even frozen. He just thought himself,
Wow.
like just by thinking about it, he killed himself. Our mind is so powerful. If I tell you, just imagine that you're holding a juicy lemon and you bite into it, and it just fills your mouth with this
I'm
juices and the
already
sourness.
salivating,
Yeah, you
right?
start salivating. So if a thought can create salivation, our thoughts can create so many things, so many healing, so much healing in our bodies, and you are a proof of that. And I like what you said about not letting the fear take over, because the fear will come. The negative voices will come. They're going to be external, they're going to be internal. We're going to be under the attack, and we have to remind ourselves to to step forward, to live beyond those little voices, to shrink them, to say thank you for sharing and move on, because two thoughts cannot coexist at the same time in your subconscious mind. You cannot be in fear and in love at the same time. And you cannot beat emotion with logic. You can only beat emotions with stronger emotions. So when you bring the emotion of love, which is the strongest emotion of them all, fear goes away, and then you win.
I think that is so powerful. And I think that we could spend all our time just talking about the mind and how powerful it is. And one of the things that I set up when I started this journey was setting up my wellness team family. And I thought, you know what, when you're in flight and fright and you're in a situation where you're not creative, I mean, when those doctors came out and said to me, it is spread all over my body, all over to bone cancer, all over. I mean, the the rational thought would have been to listen and be a statistic.
Mhm.
And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm
Yes.
I'm going to. And that's what I did. I literally I told my cells, well, let's cohabitate. We can all be better together. you know, let's do this journey together, and we don't have to, be at odds with one another. And just started really. And so what I did was I created similar. What I'm showing you is the flower of life. And
Nice.
I woke up one night after doing a meditation, a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation, and I was working on an event with him to put together 400 of our thought leaders, scientists, healers, that could talk about what's possible. I mean, if we start pulling together and sharing testimonials of what's working with one another, I mean, it just takes this is sharing,
It's
you
like the
know,
4 minute mile. The moment that it was broken, a week later, 2 weeks later, everybody were
start.
like,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes,
And I think
amazing.
that's what's so powerful when we talk about, I mean, whether it's, and I've lost friends who got COVID and passed away. I mean, it's a serious thing. And I, I haven't gotten a cold in 3 years at all. And I think a lot of it has to do with mind over matter and what you communicate to yourself. and how, are you going to be your best friend, through this process? Do you love yourself enough to take yourself out of an abusive relationship? And that
Yes.
relationship could be with yourself. And you know what I kept thinking, Oriana, is I kept thinking, God put me in this body with this soul, having this experience, for a reason, not to be in fear, but to be in love, and just to celebrate. And so I choose to live like that, every single day. And I think that that's, truly what's been happening. People ask me all the time, and I'm like, you know what, my number one thing is my attitude of gratitude and just being grateful, and the way that I'm showing up in love. And so I created the flower of life, but I put myself, with myself, and I surrounded myself with a core team and core resources and core services. And so I put that. And so if you go to therealshare.com, we're actually posting that on there. But it's this flower of life that you are able to be, show up for yourself, but also then show up for others. So just like they're able to be there for me, I'm able to be there for them. And it just expands. It's like I looked at this as happy cells. They're just lots of happy cells that are working together and
Nice.
and being better together. And I think that if we can,
And also, I just want to say something about it. Symbolism. It's so important because you carry that symbolism on you, and the healing happens in the subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind doesn't speak regular language. It speaks metaphors. It speaks stories. It speaks symbolism. So something like that to carry on you is very, very powerful, because it's an anchor to who you are and the wholeness that you are.
No, thank you for saying that too, and recognizing that. And I think that goes back to the mind. And like you said earlier, you can't have a negative and a positive thought, hold at one spot at the same. And the positive will overpower. I mean, I started sharing. I set up with my mom and my dad in creating these new experiences. And one of which was we did a road trip to visit my sister up in San Francisco. And it was a 7-hour drive. And the conversation started out with me asking questions. And the first one was, Mom, Dad, tell me about the day I was born.
Oh, wow.
And, and just creating that for me. Or last week, they came over and we rented a boat and we went out, there's my dad driving the boat, and, and I'm with my parents. And it was just the most amazing time. But I created that, and recognizing that we have the ability to create the life that we want. We get to, create something. And one thing that I was told in the very beginning was that cancer, affects everyone, in the family. It has a way of affecting everybody. And so I thought, rather than it being a negative, let's make it a positive. And so I rekindled my relationship. I've never been so close with my mom, never been so close with my dad, never been so close with my son and my daughter. I mean, it's honestly, it's like I feel like I'm living like I've never lived before. And now and also on top of it, I'm doing more work and getting more results than I ever have done before. For example, I'm meeting with the 1%ers. So instead of meeting with individuals that suck the life out of you, or that are negative, or that don't believe in you or believe in the work that you're doing, rather than get caught up in their negativity, I choose to surround myself with individuals that are living life all out. I've, in this past, couple of years, my business partner and I have sold a company. We sold a company called My Jane, and that company went IPO on the Canadian Stock Exchange.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, just doing huge stuff, or the California Women's Conference. We'll be celebrating its 40th year
My
this
goodness.
coming May, and doing things, and doing things in a way where you are, really showing up with that compassion and working together works. And something that we did with the California Women's Conference was we focused on the 5 to thrive. And the happiest people, Gallup poll did a study, and they said the happiest people on the planet are doing all 5 of these areas. So it was career, just how you spent your time. Physical was just having the energy to do the things that you want to do. Financial was having the means, just the means to do the things. And people thought that, you made the millions and that meant that you were the happiest. And it wasn't
No.
that way at all. Once the roof over your head is covered and, the lights and you got food, that's the happiness meter. And then it was social, the relationships that we have. And that's why you hear a lot of times people will have this amazing work situation, but then they come home and they're completely disconnected from their family. And then the one that we forget the most, which is the one that I have found so much joy in, and that's community. And I think that when we surrender, like what we were talking about before, the people that have showed up for me and my business partners, and I'll never do another company again by myself, because that means that I would not be able to stay, in doing what I absolutely love and doing my genius. Like, to me, this is what I love doing, is being able to spread the word about individuals like, the Joe Dispenzas of the world, or, the work that you're doing and your husband are doing that is so brilliant, just to get this messaging out there that, right now we have 1 out of 2 individuals suffering from chronic illness. We have 1 out of 2 men getting cancer, 1 out of 3 women getting cancer, right now today. And until we figure out how to really surrender and recognize that, there's a reason why we were put into this body, into this soul, and why, and how the veil is very thin, that we can be at one with, this journey that we're on, and not suffer needlessly, I think is really the messaging that we want to get out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. When you say surrender, do you mean surrender to your higher self, surrender to the creator? What is that surrender for you?
For me, it's recognizing that we're always held by God. It's recognizing that we don't have to do this by ourselves. It's knowing, that morning, that I went to the ER, and had 1.8 liter of fluid taken out of my left lung.
Wow.
I was held. I wasn't afraid. And the nurses and, the doctors, I mean, they showed up. And for me, it's being able to show up as a family unit where we're not coming to the kitchen table to have conversation, where we're not bringing fear tactics and stigmas and religious overtones and politics. What I've been experiencing is a family who is loving on one another, but they're divided. My family, everybody has a different opinion on COVID. Everybody has a different opinion on the vaccine. Everyone has, literally in my family of people that I absolutely, love dearly, disagree with each other on what to do. What they don't disagree on is loving one another.
That's so beautiful, and it's such a powerful message, because so many families are being divided because of this topic. People take this idea of whatever they decide to do. It's become a cult, it become a religion. I am the party that thinks this, and I'm the party that think that. And just like in politics, where you have people, you have Republicans, you have Democrats, it doesn't mean that if you have a different opinion that you have to hate on each other. This is the time for love. This is the time for community. This is the time to come together just for our sanity and for our well-being. Because
Yes.
the more we are divided, the more we're isolated or in the illusion of isolation, the more we individually suffer regardless. So you can be right or you can be loving. What would you choose?
Well, and I love this conversation that we're having right now, because I think it's one that we all need to be having. And that is, I look at the conversation with my dad and I. My dad was a former police officer, narcotic agent. I utilized cannabis as a tincture. And Western medicine came back and said, you know what, the tumors shrunk 52%. And the
Nice.
only thing that I was doing was cannabis, for the first, 2 months, from one PET scan to the next PET scan. And my dad literally cried. I mean, he cried because I wasn't doing conventional medicine. I wasn't doing chemo. I wasn't doing radiation. And he was literally arguing with me. And the team of doctors that I put together, they advised me that it was not prudent for me to get the vaccine. I have not had the vaccine yet. And when my family comes together, it's really, really challenging that if we have the conversations, we start the conversations around different individuals' beliefs. And what we have chosen to do, and thank you to my mother who told my father, she said, if, Michelle is owning her wellness, and she is doing what she needs to do for her wellness and her well-being,
Beautiful.
and going with her gut instinct.
Beautiful.
And she then said, if you keep arguing with her, I'm going to call the police. She told my dad, because he's physically upset. He couldn't understand why I wasn't getting the vaccine, and why my husband and I were against it. And so when we came together, what we had to really comes to terms with is sharing with each other, what it is that our gifts are, what our genius is, how can we contribute to the family unit, as well as what it was that we needed.
Mm.
And what I told my dad is just, Dad, I just need you to love on me.
Nice.
I just need you to hold me. I just need you to love on me. And, and it was at that time that my mom's like, tell her how you feel about her. And my dad's like, she knows how I feel about her. And my dad was then saying to me, I'm proud of you. I love you. This was not that long ago. This was just a few months ago that we as a family were going through this. And we agree. And my dad will say, if something comes up about the vaccine or something comes up, we agree to disagree and not talk about it. And what we do is we talk about what it is that each one of us individually needs. And what we're finding is that individually, we don't have all the answers, but collectively, when we come together in just pure support of one another and loving on each other, and don't make it about politics or religion or fear tactics or any of that stuff, and we just make it about like how that person in the family is feeling and what they need, then then we're showing compassion for one another.
I think you should create a course and have families take it, because I think so many families need it right now. Need to get out of the ego mindset and just be in a place of love. Because the most important thing is our community, our loved ones. Like that is the most important thing, and not whether or not we're right or wrong.
I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. The whole thing with the vaccine, we just don't want to lose. We don't want to have people go and lose. Oh, here's my physical therapist is. I'm still on my podcast, um, but he's actually been wonderful too, because it's nice when you don't want to get up and you don't want to walk and you don't want to do the exercises you don't want to do, and then you have that person that shows up for you, that wants to do it. But
Yeah,
I love that. I would love to brainstorm with you guys,
absolutely.
because I know that you're doing stuff like that too. But I think that's something that's come up for me. It's so awesome that you say that with the family unit.
Mm-hmm.
It is about the family. And think about, I mean, the whole point of getting a vaccine shot is so that we don't lose our loved ones.
Right. Thank
Right?
you. Thank
That's
you
the,
so much. And then people just lose each other for what? For what? Like
yeah.
you really are in the knowing of how like time is so precious. You know, when we don't have an illness, we don't appreciate time. We are we don't appreciate our health. We don't think about our mortality. But when you're in the place where you're like constantly you're encountering your mortality, and the focus is how can I not only survive but strive, then you're like, this moment is important. My loved ones are important. The arguments are not important. It's how I feel and how they feel with me. And now we come together. This is the most important thing.
And what if this was all about us learning how to work well with one another, with our families, with our communities? I mean, what if we could turn this around and look at it from a positive standpoint and say this is an opportunity for us to grow and really lean in on supporting each other rather than tearing each other down.
Yeah, beautiful. So I want to be respectful of your time. And before we say goodbye for now, I know we went over time. I just couldn't stop talking to you. You're amazing.
I told you we
You're
would get along. I'm so
unbelievable.
excited to know you.
So two questions. One is where can people find you? And the second one, which like I'm asking everyone, but you already gave me like this was an hour and some on how to live a stellar life. But the second question is your three top tips to living a stellar life.
Beautiful. So the first one is to you have an option to show up in love or fear, and it's a visceral feeling that we have internally. And so you know when you yourself are being fearful or if you're showing up in love. And so my comment is to choose love. Choose you, choose love, and lead with that. And everything works itself out beautifully when you do that. When you choose love and you choose to vibrate at a higher level frequency than playing at that low level frequency where it's you're getting stuck. Choose to vibrate at that higher level frequency in love. So that would be the first one. The second one is to create your wellness team family, like I did. Don't go at this alone. Do this with your team surrounding you, and have a blast doing it. I mean, I've never had so much fun. I feel like I am living life to the fullest, and I've created this wellness team family that is surrounding me, and it's in career, physical, financial, social, community. And so they can all find out how to do that on therealshare.com. And then the final one is live life like you are living, like you've been given 90 days to live. I mean, I didn't start living till I truly started living like I only had 90 days to live.
That sounds like the title of your new book. Wow.
I can't wait to collaborate with you and Stephen. I'm telling you, no accidents.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being such a bright, beautiful light and inspiring me so much and inspiring everybody that is listening right now. So thank you so much. And mwah. Thank you, listeners. Remember to choose love over fear, to create your own wellness team and to have a blast while doing it, and live your life like you have been given 90 days to live and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.